Hello, everybody. Venom is here. I know it's been a while, but yeah, I am back. Here we go. Strategic preparedness, readiness, and response plan to end the global COVID-19 emergency in 2022. This is by the World Health Organization, and here is the PDF. If it'll load, it's loaded. All right. There's only a few things I need to read out of this. A lot of gobbledygook. But we'll start here with the planning scenarios. The complex interplay between all the above factors and the dynamic changes in their relative importance in different contexts over time means that an effective strategy to end the global COVID-19 emergency must be multi-layered and agile. It must be flexible enough to account for changes in immunological and virological, I got it, drivers of impact and transmission that are both largely outside our control and extremely hard to predict on the basis of current evidence and tools. For planning purposes, we can envisage three potential scenarios regarding viral evolution and human immunity over the next 12 months: a base case, a best case, and a worst case. A base case is our current working model and is based on what we know about the duration of vaccine-derived and infection-derived immunity, the natural history of SARS-CoV-2 and its evolution over the past 2 years, and our knowledge of other respiratory viruses. It should be acknowledged, however, that there is a high degree of uncertainty attached to all scenarios, and we must therefore build in the flexibility to adapt to rapid and dynamic changes in viral transmission, disease severity, and their impact on individual and population-level immunity. Another potential scenario to be kept in mind is the emergence of an essentially new SARS-CoV-2 virus. This could be through a new emergence from a pre-existing or newly established animal reservoir, or due to a recombination event in which a patient co-infected with two separate variants of SARS-CoV-2 produces new infectious viral particles that have genetic characteristics shared with both parent lineages. This scenario would effectively be a reset with a completely susceptible global population. This scenario is not explicitly included as a planning scenario, but should be considered a background threat, and all COVID-19 response and readiness capacities should be understood to yield a resilience dividend pertaining to that threat. Oh, there you go. There's a cat scratching at the door now. But yeah, do you hear that? There'll be a reset. And we'll start this shit all over again. And what's this crap about a new animal reservoir? Well, we'll get into that in just a little bit. There was a couple more things I wanted to read. Page 13. Surveillance. There's a specific spot. I had it marked down. Where is it? Public health decision-making at local, national, regional, and global levels must be based on real-time, accurate data and analysis. For COVID-19, this means at minimum data from disease surveillance and data on and health system utilization and capacity. Put simply, effective prevention and response to COVID-19 is dependent on dynamic knowledge of what to respond to, where and what scale, with what available capacity, and who is most vulnerable. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to expose marked weaknesses in multiple aspects of public health. Intelligence is in nearly all countries, with many countries now beginning to scale down SARS-CoV-2 testing programs. Maintaining and strengthening SARS-CoV-2 surveillance in every country is vital to track the spread of and evolution of SARS-CoV-2, rapidly detect and characterize new variants of interest and concern, and calibrate public health and social measures, as well as medical interventions. However, at this stage, the pandemic and vaccine-derived and infection-derived immunity increases worldwide, there is a need to relocate resources to enable a more strategic and sustainable approach to SARS-CoV-2 surveillance. Over here. It may be necessary. Sorry, I should highlight where it may be necessary to maintain more intensive surveillance to minimize transmission and morbidity while aggressively advancing vaccine coverage, particularly amongst the most vulnerable in all settings, will remain important to maintain, strengthen, blah, blah, blah. SARS-CoV-2 with systems for the surveillance of influenza and other respiratory pathogens, and this will pave. Efficiencies can be made by integrating the surveillance. So they want to integrate the SARS-CoV-2 surveillance with other pathogen surveillance, and this will pave the way for sustainable system integration respiratory disease surveillance beyond the end of the acute emergency. So they want to jack up the surveillance. The biosurveillance state is what we'll be living in. We already have a taste of that, but it'll be so much more. Also, page 14. So continued on. What did I have marked down? I'm actually taking notes this time. I was a little bit prepared. Yes. Okay, where does that start? Zoonotic disease surveillance. Just want to make sure. Several animal species are known to be susceptible to SARS-CoV-2. The establishment of animal reservoirs in which the virus circulates and genetically evolves has been observed on several occasions in wild or farmed species, such as mink, hamsters, and white-tailed deer. Remember, a few months back, I covered how they were culling hamsters in China because supposedly they tested positive for COVID-19. I also covered the zombie deer also being having COVID-19 here in this video. Zombie deer drones in Kobe, oh my. You should watch that. And I go down that little hole of shit. With reverse transmission to humans. So all these animals with reverse transmission to humans, who is working closely with other international organizations and partners involved in animal health to promote increased surveillance in animal populations known to be at risk, including wild populations, and monitor the evolution of SARS-CoV-2 virus associated with these jumps between species. This essential yet currently underutilized component of surveillance requires urgent investment and wider implementation. At present, very little is known about potential SARS-CoV-2 reservoirs in many parts of the world. Over the longer term, a One Health approach to disease surveillance must be incorporated in routine pandemic preparedness, readiness, and response. So, just imagine this freaking dystopian future we're entering into of biosurveillance is going to not just be of the human populations in the cities, it's going to be all of nature. Not a single leaf will go unturned. Everything will be monitored, surveilled. I think I had one more thing I wanted to. Page 27. What did I have marked down? Outbreaks and infectious pathogens have been a defining feature of human history, and any analysis of prevailing trends strongly suggests that outbreaks of pathogens of pandemic potential are set to continue to increase in frequency for the foreseeable future. COVID-19 was disease X, and the next disease X is out there. We just have to go find it and bring it to you all. SARS-CoV-2 will continue to circulate in the foreseeable future. The gains made since 2020 in surveillance and public health response capacity for COVID-19, including new technological advancements in diagnostics and genomic Surveillance and the strengthening of established networks and partnerships must not be lost as authorities relocate public health resources to other pressing needs. We must retain the agility and the public health intelligence necessary to rapidly scale up and relax response efforts in response to dynamic changes in the nature of the pandemic threat. Is that all? Yeah. So there you have it. That was brought to you by the World Health Organization. This was just recently posted. March 30th of 2022. Now, before I saw this, I had read some of this article. Into the Wild: Animals, the Latest Frontier in COVID Fight. This was on Wednesday. They don't have an actual date. I guess this last Wednesday. What was that? Doesn't matter. It was still March. Grand Portage, I don't know how to pronounce it, Minnesota, I think. To administer the COVID test, Todd Kotz had to lie on his belly in the snow and worm his upper body into the narrow den of a hibernating black bear. Training a light on its snout, Kotz carefully slipped a long cotton swab into the bear's nostrils 5 times. One more and you could have had 6, buddy. For postdoctoral researcher, Kotz and a team of other wildlife experts, tracking the coronavirus means freezing temperatures, icy roads, trudging through deep snow, and getting uncomfortably close to potentially dangerous wildlife. They're testing bears, moose, deer, and wolves on a Native American reservation in the remote North Woods about 5 miles from Canada. Like researchers around the world, they're trying to figure out how much, and where wildlife is spreading the virus. Scientists are concerned that the virus could evolve with animal populations, potentially spawning dangerous viral mutants that could jump back to people, spread among us, and reignite what for now seems to some people like a waning crisis. Well, we can't allow that. We can't have it wane. No, we need to reset it with a new virus. A new but same virus. The coronavirus pandemic has served as a stark and tragic example of how closely animal health and human health are linked, while the origins of the virus have not been proven. What? Okay, let's just read that sentence again. The coronavirus pandemic has served as a stark and tragic example of how closely animal health and human health are linked, while the origins of the virus have not been proven. Many scientists say it's likely jump from bats to humans, either directly or through another species that was being sold, like in Wuhan, China. But we don't have any proof. Hasn't been proven. Has not been proven. And we're going on 3 years now, people, and they still don't have the origin of it. And we're still debating whether it was from the lab or from natural, but we don't have proof. Come on. And now the virus has been confirmed in wildlife in at least 24 U.S. states, including Minnesota. Recently, an early Canadian study showed someone in nearby Ontario likely contracted a highly mutated strain from a deer. Better not go hunting. If the virus can establish itself in a wild animal reservoir, it will always be out there with the threat to spill back into the human population. So I guess we can never go back to the woods, because there'll always be the threat that will start up the next SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. Do you see what is happening here, people? I'm pretty sure you do, because you're smart people like me. If we consider that there are many species and they're all intermingling, yep, they're just having freaking orgies in the forests to some extent, Their pattern and their movements can exponentially increase the amount of transmission that could occur, he said. Into the wild. Their research is meant to ward off such unwelcome surprises, but it carries its own set of risks. Seth Moore, who directs the Reservation Biology and Environment Department, recently almost got bitten by a wolf. Too bad it didn't get him. And they sometimes team with a crew from the Texas-based company Heliwild. Heliwild, like I guess helicopter. Heliwild to capture animals from the air. One chilly late winter afternoon, the men climbed into a small helicopter with no side doors that lifted above the treetops. Flying low, they quickly spotted a deer in a forest clearing. They targeted that animal from the air with a net gun and dropped Moore off. Wind whipped at his face as he worked in deep snow to quickly swab the deer's nose for COVID, put on a tracking collar, and collect blood and other biological samples for different research. The men capture moose in much the same way, using tranquilizer darts instead of nets. They trap wolves and deer either from the air or on the ground, and trap bears on the ground. They knew the young male bear they recently tested because they had already been tracking it. To get to the den, they had to take snowmobiles to the bottom of a hill, then hike a narrow winding path in snowshoes. Ugh. Oh, Jesus, playing something. Okay. When Kotz crawled partway into the den, a colleague held his feet to pull him out quickly if necessary. The team also gave the animal a drug to keep it sleeping, and another later to counteract the effects of the first. Alright, okay. To minimize the risk of exposing animals to COVID, the men are fully vaccinated and boosted and get tested frequently. The day after testing, the bear, Isaac packed their samples to send to Aloyata's lab in St. Paul. The veterinarian biomedical researcher hopes to learn not just which animals are getting infected, but also which certain animals are acting as bridge species to bring it to others. Testing may later be expanded to red foxes and raccoons. Oh, goody. Those poor creatures, they get terrorized too. It's also possible the virus hasn't reached this remote location yet, since it's already circulating in the wilderness of Minnesota and nearby states, Aloyata, and it's said it's only a matter of time. Looking for mutants. Just look in the mirror. Close contact between humans and animals has allowed the virus to overcome built-in barriers to spread between species. To infect any living thing, the virus must get into its cells, which isn't always easy. Virology expert David O'Connor likens the process to opening a lock with the virus spike protein key. Different species have different looking locks, and some of those locks are not going to be pickable by the key, the University of Wisconsin-Madison scientist said, but other locks are similar enough for the virus to enter an animal's cells and make copies of itself. As it does, it can randomly mutate and still have a key that fits into the human lock that allows it to leap back to humans through close contact with live animals, scientists believe. They believe. It's a faith, people. They believe! Although spillback is rare, it only takes one person to bring a mutated virus into the realms of humans. You filthy animal. You filthy human, you brought back the virus from the forest. Burn him! Some think the highly mutated Omicron variant emerged from an animal rather than an immune-compromised human, as many believe. Virologist Mark Johnson of the University of Missouri is one of them, and now sees animals as a potential source of pi, the Greek letter that may be used to designate the next dangerous coronavirus variant. Oh, that's a slice of pie you don't want. Johnson and his colleagues found strange coronavirus lineages in New York City's sewage with mutations rarely seen elsewhere, which he believes came from animals, perhaps rodents. What scientists are most concerned about is that current or future variants could establish themselves and multiply widely within a reservoir species. One possibility, white-tailed deer. Scientists found the coronavirus in a third of deer sampled in Iowa between September 2020 and January 2021. Others found COVID-19 antibodies in a third of deer tested in Illinois, Michigan, New York, and Pennsylvania. Infected deer generally have no symptoms. Testing in many other species has been limited or absent. So, no symptoms. Wow, that sounds awfully familiar. I guess the only way to know is the test. Otherwise, I guess you wouldn't know there was a pandemic, would you? Seems like it's a what's the word? Paramount. The only way this could exist is if we had testing. Otherwise, you just wouldn't know. Just wouldn't know that we're in a pandemic, would we? It's possible that the virus is already perhaps circulating in multiple animals, said virology expert Suresh Kuchipudi of Pennsylvania State University and author of the Iowa deer study. If unmonitored, the virus could leave people completely blindsided. Yep, they wouldn't even know they had it, and then they would just be like living normal or something. We wouldn't want that. Can it be stopped? Ultimately, experts say the only way to stop viruses from jumping back and forth between animals and humans, extending this pandemic or sparking a new one, is to tackle big problems like habitat destruction and illegal wildlife sales. Sounds familiar. We'll get to that in a minute. We are encroaching on animal habitats like we have never before in history, Aliota said. Spillover events from wild animals into humans are, unfortunately, I think, going to increase in both frequency and scope. To combat the threat, 3 international organizations, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Organization for Animal Health, and the World Health Organization, urging countries to make COVID surveillance in animals a priority. So just like we read there. In Grand Portage, Aleota's collaborators continue to do their part by testing as many animals as they can catch. With icy lake Superior sparkling through the evergreens, Isaac's it just goes on this little gay description of him doing his duty to torture all the animals with his brain ticklers. We don't need to read that stupid line of thought. Now remember, back in 2020, what did China do with regards to hunting? China bans wildlife trade permanently due to the coronavirus outbreak that has already claimed the lives of more than 2,700 people. Back in February 25th of 2020, they completely took away. No one can go hunting in the woods anymore. Yesterday, the National People's Congress Standing Committee in China declared an immediate and comprehensive ban on the trade and consumption of wild animals, as it is suspected to be responsible for the devastating coronavirus epidemic. Still not proven. Asterisk, still not proven. The decision stipulates that the illegal consumption and trade of wildlife will be severely punished, as will hunting, trading, or transporting wild animals for the purpose of consumption. According to the World Health Organization, as of this morning, China has reported a staggering 77,362 cases of coronavirus. Whatever. Anyways, you understand. This is what they want to do here in North America, is destroy the hunting. And they also come in for your pets. Here they say I want to read this line just because I've often talked about how your pets will be next. The World Health Organization has made it clear there's no evidence that dogs or cats can be infected. That's not true anymore. They say that they can. Due to false rumors, some Chinese residents have been killing their pets, mistakenly believing that they can contract the virus from them. Imagine that insanity. Juan applauds the Chinese government for implementing a life-saving permanent ban on the trade and consumption of wild animals. There must now be a permanent worldwide ban enacted on the wildlife trade and dog and cat trade, meat trade. And then here, there was this article I came across. We're not going to read it, but we'll just, there's been calls, this was from 2 years ago, calls for a global ban on wild animal markets and amid coronavirus outbreak. So now what we're seeing happening is they're building the case to make that ban, because when you test stuff, as we've all learned, if you don't test it, how else will you know? Meaning, you can't have a pandemic without a test. That's what's coming. They want to take that away. Now, I've talked about a lot, mainly in my blogs from years ago, about, and we've already known this, that they want to cut us off from nature. At least they want to cut us off from nature the way that we normally would enjoy it as human beings, free human beings. We would just go to the woods, we would camp, we experience nature, we hunt, fish, all that stuff. That's not the future they want. They want, as I made in this little thumbnail, this is just a little drawing depicting the Brave New World book, the scene where they condition the babies to hate books and flowers. This specific group of babies were being trained to hate books and flowers so that they would fear nature, but almost so much just in a way that they would still want to consume nature in a way that it doesn't really matter. Boys didn't want him going out in nature and enjoying nature, so they made him hate flowers. I, of course, added some tweaks to the picture to show deer and farming and stuff like that. But yeah, we've had nothing but constant reports of the zombie deer, the threat of zombie deer. They'll get you. There's been no evidence, but they'll keep scaring you with it. And then I went on the zombie talk, but that's not here there. I'll give a short explanation now, but for more information, there's this post. I'll go to that post in a minute. Basically, they want people to avoid nature unless it's a park or nature reserve, right, where they can view and track your activities within their nature. And that's what the point of it all is. They want you in their nature, not nature. They want to keep you from nature. And here's the part describing that scene that I was showing in that photo cover, or yeah, my cover here. It talks about the conditioning of the children. I'll just get to the part. The director opened the door. They were in a large bare room, very bright and sunny, for the whole of the southern wall was a single window. Half a dozen nurses, trousered and jacketed in the regulation white viscous linen uniform, their hair aseptically hidden under their white caps, were engaged in setting out bowls of roses in a long row across the floor, big bowls packed tight with blossoms, thousands of petals, ripe, blown, and silkily smooth, like the cheeks of innumerable little cherubs, but of cherubs in that bright light, not exclusively pink and Aryan, but also luminously Chinese, also Mexican, also apoplectic. It's a weird word, with too much blowing of celestial trumpets, also pale as death, pale with the posthumous whiteness of marble. The nurses stiffened to attention as the DHC, that's the director of hatcheries and conditioning, came in, set out the books, he said curtly. In silence, the nurses obeyed. Blah, blah, blah. Now bring out the children. They hurried out the room and returned in a minute or two, each pushing a kind of tall, dumb waiter laden on all its 4 wire-netted shelves with 8-month-old babies, all exactly like a Buckanoski Bukanovsky group, it was evident, and all, since their caste was Delta, dressed in khaki. Put them down on the floor. The infants were unloaded. Now turn them so that they can see the flowers and books. And the babies at once fell silent, then began to crawl towards those clusters of sleek colors, those shapes so gay and brilliant on the white pages. As they approached, the sun came out of a momentarily eclipse behind a cloud. The roses flamed up as though with a sudden passion from within. A new and profound significance seemed to suffuse the shining pages of the books. From the ranks of the crawling babies came little squeals of excitement, gurgles, and twitterings of pleasure. Director rubbed his hands. "Excellent," he said. "It might almost have been done on purpose." The swiftest crawlers were already at their goals. Some small hands reached out uncertainly, touched and grasped, unpedaling the transfigured roses, crumpling the illuminated pages of the books. Director waited until all were happily busy. Then, watch carefully, he said, and lifting his hand, he gave the signal. The head nurse, who was standing by a switchboard at the other end of the room, pressed down a little lever. There was a violent explosion. Shriller, and even an ever shriller, a siren shrieked. Our alarm bells maddeningly sounded. The children started, screamed, their faces were distorted with terror. "And now," the director shouted, for the noise was deafening, "now we proceed to rub in the lesson with a mild electric shock." He waved his hand again, and the head nurse pressed a second lever. The screaming of the babies suddenly changed its tone. There was something desperate, almost insane about the sharp, spasmodic yelps to which they now gave utterance. Their little bodies twitched and stiffened, their limbs moved jerkily, as if to the tug of unseen wires. "We can electrify the whole strip of floor," bawled the director in explanation. "But that's enough," he signaled to the nurse. The explosions ceased, the bells stopped ringing, the shriek of the sirens died down from tone to tone into silence. The stiffly twitching bodies relaxed, and what had become the sob and yelp of infants maniacs broadened out once more into a normal howl of ordinary terror. "Offer them the flowers and the books again." The nurses obeyed, but at the approach of the roses and the mere sight of those gaily colored images of Pussy and Cock-a-doodle-doo and Baba Blacksheep, the infants shrank away in horror. The volume of their howling suddenly increased. "Observe," said the director triumphantly. "Observe." Books and loud noises, flowers and electric shocks already in the infant mind, these coupled with compromisingly linked. And after 200 repetitions of the same or a similar lesson would be wedded indissolubly. What man has joined nature is powerless to put asunder. They'll grow up with what the psychologists used to call an instinctive hatred of books and flowers, reflexes unalteredly conditioned. They'll be safe from books and botany all their lives. Director turned to his nurses. "Take them away again." Still yelling, the cocky babies were loaded onto the dumbwaiter and wheeled out, leaving behind them the smell of sour milk and a most unwelcome silence. One of the students held their hands, and though he could see quite well why you couldn't have lower caste people wasting the community's time over books, and that there was always the risk of their reading something which might undesirably decondition one of their reflexes, yet, while he couldn't understand about the flowers, why go through the trouble of making it psychologically impossible for deltas to like flowers? Excellent DHC explained, if the children were made to scream at the sight of a rose, that was on grounds of high economic policy. Not so very long ago, a century or thereabouts, gammas, deltas, even epsilons had been conditioned to like flowers. Flowers in particular and wild nature in general. The idea was to make them want to be going out into the country at every available opportunity, and so compel them to consume transport. "And didn't they consume transport?" asked the student. "Quite a lot," the DHC replied, "but nothing else. Primroses and landscapes," he pointed out, "have one grave defect. They're gratuitous. A lot of nature keeps no factories busy. it was decided to abolish the love of nature, at any rate among the lower classes, to abolish the love of nature, but not the tendency to consume transport. For of course it was essential that they should keep on going the country, even though they hated it. The problem was to find an economically sounder reason for consuming transport than a mere affection for primroses and landscapes. It was duly found. We conditioned the masses to hate the country, concluded the director, but simultaneously we conditioned them to love all country sports. At the same time, we see it that all country sports shall entail the use of elaborate apparatus so that they consume manufactured articles as well as transport. Hence, those electric shocks. I see, said the student, and was silent, lost in admiration. So there you go. That's one way to do it. But we don't live in the brave new world quite so. So we rely upon fear and propaganda and biosurveillance. And at the same time, they're locking up all the land. They are, the 30 by 30 plan, which I'll just pop over here real quick before I show the other one. There's a video I did last year called Community Fridges, Food Insecurity, and 30 by 30 Plan. That's basically a 33 plan, where they are locking up all the land. Oh, this is just a video. Yeah, duh. They want to go more than that, though. Eventually, it'll be a 50%, as the CPAWS wants 50% of land locked up in conservation. But if you understand how the population of Canada, and well, I don't have a map of the US so much, but in Canada, we live mostly by the border. All this land up here is largely unpopulated. As they said, where is it? Over 70% of Canada's population lives in packed urban layouts. Canada area and population density. As you can see from the map in the section further down the page, the majority of Canadians live in a narrow southern belt along the border of the United States. There are two main reasons for this. The first is that most hospitable part of Canadian territory is in the south. Summers and warm winters are not too harsh, making the area suitable for agriculture. The second reason is the majority of Canadians trade, both import and export, is with the U.S. neighbor, and it makes sense the majority of Canadians live as close to the U.S. border as possible. So we do most of our farming here, and they want to even lock up that with the 30 by 30 plan. They want to lock up a lot of that land and what we're used to grow. And if you've been paying attention for maybe the last 2 years, but even in recent times, now that our leaders are now talking about the food shortages, and I'm going to cover that in another video. I'm going to talk about all the food shortage stuff, even though I've been talking about it, off and on for the past 2 years, going on 3 years. But now it's finally here to the point where the leaders are now talking about it. Canadian population growth. Canada is one of the fastest growing nations, blah, blah, blah. 5 million is more than that now. Is estimated that the predictable growth will continue as Canada will have 45 million residents in 2056, although it is expected to fall off a bit due to declines in natural population increases. It's also predicted that deaths will outpace births by 2030. Isn't that interesting? How do they know that? How did they know that when I submitted this? This was before the you-know-what happened. It's 3 years ago. It was before the great event, but they knew that the deaths would outpace births by 2030, which means immigration will become the only growth factor for the country. I've also, do I even have that article? Probably not on this one. I should have put it on this one. But we had the our immigration minister of Canada, I think he's still in the position. His name is something Hussein or something like that. He, several years ago, had said that by 2036, 100% of Canada's population growth will be immigration. It won't be by birth, just immigration, 100%. How does he know that? How do you know that? Because it's part of the plan. They want to render us all effectively unable to breed naturally. How are they going to do that? Well, I don't know. Take a few guesses, but I think you all know what's been going down. Canada needs a triple amount of protected land because we have a nature emergency, apparently. This is from 2019. Yeah. How much forest does Canada have? A lot. Canada's 347 million hectares of forest make up 9% of the world's forests. 24% of the world's boreal forests are found within Canada's borders. Much of Canada's forest is in remote, sparsely populated areas. It is not under the same pressure to be cleared from agriculture or urban or development as forests in many other countries. Canada has nearly 10 hectares of forest land per person. 10 hectares per person. More than 17 times the world average. Yet we gotta lock up agricultural land to protect it and regrow the trees? You fucking kidding me? We need global goals and targets for the next decade that are on a scale that will actually tackle the nature emergency that we face. Alison Woodley, ha, executive with CPAWS said in an interview with CBC News. This is needed to reserve the decline that we are seeing in nature, which is critical not only for wildlife but also for people, because their nature provides all the basic necessities that we need, that we rely on, like water, food, and oxygen. Really? We're not getting the food from agriculture? No, we're getting it from the forest? But I thought we weren't supposed to touch the forest. So which is it? Oh, people. We are in trouble. We are in trouble. But yeah, I just wanted to show you the insanity that is that's going on with the animal testing in the wild, and they're going to lock up the lands further. They already have their 30 by 30 plan, but if there's a risk that there could be some new animal reservoirs, then we can't go in the forest. We certainly cannot hunt, because then we could spread the COVID. But that's all I had to say. Thank you for your time and attention. As always, I know it's been a while, so yeah, it's nice to be back here to record something. And I'll be back again very soon to cover the food shortage crisis that is at hand. So yeah, with that said, if you want to support the channel, please like and share the content. And if you'd like to support further, there are links in the description below. With that said, this is Anonymous reporting for the Brave New World, and I'll catch you all next time. Oops.
No way, punk!